Okay, so where we left off last week was we had our diesel generator up and running. And we can see that we have it running here. And where we left off was that we need it to do a few things. One, we want it to make sure that we could connect it electrically, and we're going to walk through that today. And then the other challenge that I presented you with was we had some control valves that weren't operating correctly, and we're going to resolve that today. And once we've done all of this work, we should be at the point where we're ready to progress onto more advanced pieces of equipment, such as our boiler and other pieces of equipment inside of the plant. And that'll be our goal for the second part of this course, Simulation 2. Okay, so in order to connect the electrical system, what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 70. Which is our electric power plant. And our diesel generator 1 is down here, and it is yellow, so it indicates that it's running. The other generators are not running. And if I follow the yellow line, that's an electrical circuit, and I can see that I have a breaker that is not connected. And I want it to be able to connect to my main bus bar, which is where I'm going to distribute energy to all of my systems in my plant, and as well allow electricity to be fed to the grid so that I'm supplying electricity to the rest of the world. In order to do that, I don't have just a button I can hit on the breaker because there are a few added steps that we need to do. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to have it in a somewhat automated style, and in our second part of our course, what we're going to do is we're going to learn some of the technical requirements in order to connect those generators, and we'll do it manually and learn all those steps. For today, what we're going to do is we're going to switch to our DG1, and we'll see that our ready light is going to illuminate, and we can hit connect. Now, if your ready light doesn't illuminate, there's a couple of things that you may have as a problem. One of them is typically going to be the speed of the generator. Okay, so the speed of the generator we saw was 900 RPM. And if I go back to my generator, I can see that I'm slightly above that. So 905 is how fast it's going. And that translates to an electrical frequency. So that's a measure of how fast the pulses are happening inside of my electrical circuit. And it's directly related to the speed of the generator. And I could adjust it using the governor. So I want it to be slightly above 60. However, if I'm too close to 60 or too far away, then my ready light will disable. So, for instance, if I bring it down too low, we'll see that my ready light will turn off. Okay, so I'm too slow. And if I just took a look at my generator, I was 905 previously, and right now I'm very close to my rated speed of 900. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, and I just want to make sure that I am in that allowable range where we have my ready light illuminated, and with DG1 selected, I can connect that breaker. It's going to go through a process of connecting, so sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and I'll just be patient and wait. Okay, so we see that we have now connected our breaker, and we are supplying electricity to our plant. Okay, we had one other challenge that we needed to resolve last week, which was our control valves. So, for instance, we have several valves with this type of symbol on it that we need to be able to function. And we're going to definitely need these valves in order to run our steam plant. So it's something that we have to resolve before we can think about operating our boiler. And so the one valve that I pointed out to you that wasn't working correctly, or seemed to be working correctly, was this valve here. So this valve here we see is stuck in an open position at 1.76% open. And if I manually adjust this, so if I set it to say be 10% open, and we come back to this valve, we see it's not responsive to that signal. And that valve is missing something. And we think about what could be wrong with that valve, and maybe there's something wrong with the controller. Okay, maybe there's something physically wrong with that valve, so it is stuck. So even though we are trying to move it, it can't move. So those may be likely problems with it. The other thing, if we go back to what we've talked about the last few weeks, is are we supplying it with all the resources it needs? So in this case, our controller is functioning and the signal that it's providing as an output from the controller is correct. So it's trying to manipulate that valve, but it doesn't have the resources it needs. And this valve is a pneumatic valve. And what that means is that it's going to be driven by compressed air. And we don't have our compressed air systems up and running. So let's go take a look at those. So we had start air system that we were running previously, and we had a compressor that was supplying air to our start air receiver number 1. And that was one of the challenges that we did a couple weeks ago. However, that's not our only air system. We also have a system here at number 60, our service air system. And our service air system supplies air to a number of places, but the most important one is this general control air line. And that general air control line supplies compressed air to all of my control valves. So here's what we're going to do. Same process that we did when we looked at our air compressors a couple weeks ago. We'll make sure we have cooling water. We'll make sure that we have a pathway to our receiver. Okay, and in this case, I may continue my pathway along. I'll switch it to local, and I'm going to turn on my air compressor. Okay, I'm going to confirm that pressure is increasing in my receiver and my safety relief valves are not going off. Okay, which is good. And I want to just take a quick look to make sure that my system is not overheating. Okay, and it looks good. And so I could switch this guy into remote operation. Now, this tank overfills very quickly. It's a very low capacity tank. So one thing that I might do is I'll turn off my air compressor locally, and I'm going to switch them to remote. So we're going to automate them, but it doesn't have to be in the on position for the automatic controls to take over. So the decision that the automatic controls will probably make is, oh yeah, I am in a low pressure condition, so turn yourself on. We switched it on locally just to make sure everything is good, so we're not just relying on the control system, because there are some chances that we've missed a valve or we've missed cooling water or something, and we don't want to rely on the automatic controls unless we're sure that it's going to work. So we've got it in remote, and we're going to go to our panel directory, and we're going to go to page 102. And we already had our start air compressor 1 in auto, and in this case we're going to switch our service air compressor into auto as well. And we can see that automatically it's decided to turn itself on, and once it's reached an operating pressure, it will turn itself off. Okay, so now that we have some control air, let's go and adjust a couple of valves that rely on that air. So the first one is our seawater system valve that we couldn't get to work previously. And if we look at it now, I had it set at 10% as an example, and we've changed, so we're getting close to that 10% set point. However, I'm going to just put this guy into auto at 20 degrees. And I'm going to let the controller decide what valve position it wants this to be at. So we can see that it's starting to make some changes. I'm also going to go to page number 10. That's where I have another control valve. So I have my low temperature fresh water controller. And it appears that this guy is in auto, and I'm going to just confirm that he is in auto. And we'll see that my valve position is starting to adjust based on having that air available to make those changes. Okay, so those are our two valves that we're going to get working using our compressed air system. So we'll get our generator going so that we can supply electricity, and our service air system running so we can rely on our control systems. And once we have that, we have a very solid set of auxiliary systems that are able to supply us what we need in terms of resources for this plant. And then we start building more systems on top of that.